Today we're going to go through how to handle sales objections. We're going to go through one of the most valuable skills you can learn, and I'm going to explain why and really just what objections are. What improved my level of closing was first to understand what is the underlying thing we're trying to solve with dealing with objections and closing deals. And the underlying thing we're trying to solve is not make a sale. The underlying thing is we just want a decision, a yes or a no. We want them to go yes, and through the sales process, dealing with the objections, we push them to the left, but we don't want a maybe, we don't want to think about it, we want a yes or a no. That's it. Now, there's no point me telling you why you need to learn objection handling, why you need to learn to close better, if you don't see how much of a high value skill this is to learn. So we're going to get into it. Just quickly now, you need to learn closing because people are indecisive. What closing helps us to do is to make a decision, is to help people to rather say yes or say no and get them off the fence of maybe. I want to repeat that again because this is the underlying thing we're trying to do when we're closing. We're trying to help them make a decision, yes or no. That's it. Get that into your head. The reason we're closing is because we need a decision. You can see here from our breakdown of marketing, customers we're to sell to, we have 5% who are never going to buy, just unqualified. We have 5% who are always going to buy, they're completely ready to buy. And then we have this big juicy middle, this 90%. This 90% is where we have to put the skills of closing into place. So these 90% are maybes. They know they need to change, they've been waiting to change, so they don't want to make a big decision, they know change is painful, they don't want to spend their money, they don't even know that they need to change. This 90% is where we have to get them off the fence of maybe to rather yes or no. They're just unsure which direction they need to take. The reason it's so important is because this is where the money is made. You get to convert that 90% of maybes and push them into the bucket of yes. Jordan Belfort says this, that any monkey, and it's true, any monkey can read a script to a prospect and ask a couple of questions. And the monkeys in sales, they just want to deal with that 5% who are completely ready to buy. When we learn how to close, we learn how to attack that 90%, how to turn that 90% into dollars, how to take that 90% from maybes into yes. Our only job is to push them into a decision, yes or no. Of course, it's about getting them to say yes, but more importantly, it's about getting them off of the maybe train. If we don't learn how to deal with objections and close, we'll forever be left with the 5%. So learning objections and closing, not only do you develop a skill, which is increasing your probability of converting that 90%, you're able to crush or kill your competitors because you'll be winning more market share, you'll be driving more revenue, and then you can use that additional cash. You can have a larger marketing spend. And we know that businesses with larger marketing spends always out-compete their competitors. So that's why it is so important on learning how to deal with objections and learning how to close deals. So let's combine two ideas of objections and closing. So we have Jordan Belfort who says objections are just smoke screens for uncertainty. Then we have Alex Hormozi who says objections are just indecisiveness from prospects. So essentially combining, a prospect will use excuses, smoke screens for indecisiveness. They will blame it on circumstances such as I don't have the money, I don't have the time. They will blame it on other people. I need to speak to my wife, I need to speak to my partner. I went with a program like you before and it didn't work. They blame it on themselves. What happens if this doesn't work for me? So what we have to understand is these three buckets of blame, they're indecisive, they can't make a decision, so they tell us one of these things. And when we hear a smoke screen, we put it into the bucket of what are they saying? So I haven't got the money, haven't got the time. Need to speak to my partner. I'm not sure if this will work for me. We take it, we deal with it. Then what we do, closing, remember now, closing is just getting a decision. We then put the decision back on the yes or no. Are we going to work together? Shall we get started? if we put that in place. So get out of your head that you think every time you objection closing is just to switch them around and push them into a sale, because what it does is it confuses the brain and it gives you spaghetti brain. So if they've got a problem which they can't say yes or no, deal with that problem, then bring the yes or no back onto the table. That's it. We're just putting a decision in front of them. You hear, I need to think about it, I'll call you back, let me speak to my partner and I'll let you know. And they never ever buy because they're indecisive. They're maybes, and we need to get them off that maybe fence. If we don't help them make a decision, they will sit on the fence forever and they will kick the can down the road and they will never decide. And what happens is your competitor will come in and force a decision from them, and through their sales process, they will push them into the yes bucket. That's why it's so important for you to get them from a maybe to a yes, because if you keep them on a maybe train, your competitor will come in and will change them from a maybe to a yes. And from a business perspective, the longer they take to decide, the worse for your metrics. Imagine it increases our cost per call. It wastes the time of our sales team. It costs the business money to constantly chase deals, which are maybes, who are just kicking cans down the road and will never jump on a sales call and make a decision again. Also, if we can get a decision on that call in a shorter amount of time compared to our competitors, what that allows us to do is it allows us to pull more cash up front, and we can use that additional cash to outspend them, for example, with ad spend. And this allows us to beat our competitors. So 2 ways. We get more cash up front and we turn a larger percentage of the market into yeses. Our goal is to get to a position where we either get yes or we get no. And change your thinking. People are indecisive. It's not about putting them and closing them and getting the cash. That makes too much confusion in the brain when it comes to closing. What we're trying to do when we close is we're trying to deal with the objection and then put the decision back on the table. Deal with the objection, put the decision back on the table. That's it. Deal with the objection, put the offer on the table. Got it? Their indecisiveness. We help them get over that indecisiveness. We put them in a yes or no position, and we ask for the decision, and we ask for the sale.